Give you a little bit of an intro, and then we're gonna shoot it on the tray and let him take it away. All right. Okay, so welcome. I started Meet Under Minds in 2016 to focus on people who felt like they had no voice. I'm sorry, y'all. I've been running with the pizza. I'm out of breath. Okay, Meeting of the Minds is a collaboration between CEF right now and IFC and a group of empowered community members promoting affordable housing, accessible transportation, and employment. This year, Meeting of the Minds has worked to elevate the affordable housing needs of our members living at 30% AMI and below. Our focus for the meeting is, as always, affordable housing for folks of 30% AMI or lower. For those of you who don't know, housing is generally considered affordable when households spend less than 30% of their income before taxes and payroll deductions on housing and utilities. AMI is a household income for the medium or middle household in a region. That means half of the people make more and half of them make less. Orange County AMI is $80,000. Yes, $80,000, which is equivalent to $38.75 an hour. 1 in 5 households in Orange County makes less than 30% of AMI, which is $24,180 a year, or $11.63 an hour, which they still don't because they're still paying the minimum wage. Which is our population. Those are the people that we're servicing, y'all, trying to get them into housing. Ty will be your moderator for this evening. He was born in Clearwater, Florida. Also, today is Ty's birthday. So at the end of this, I'm going to sing my special happy birthday song to him. Okay, he was born Vietnamese parents, and he's a graduate of UNC Chapel Hill as a first-generation college student with a degree in computer science. He currently serves on the Chapel Hill Town Council and is building a, what is that, GovTech startup? Is that what you're doing, your own business? That's what he's doing, y'all. All right, Ty, it's on you. Take it away.
Oh, thank you for that introduction, Miss Yvette. Hello, wonderful people. I can't see any of y'all, but hello. I'm honored to be your moderator today, and I will start by introducing our amazing experts, our panelists, starting first with Miss Donna Carrington. Donna Carrington is a person of lived experience of homelessness and other identities. She is a facilitator of the National Alliance on Mental Illness at Orange County and has been the executive director of the Community Empowerment Fund for a little over a year now. Next, we have Mr. Ronald Carnes. Ronald Carnes is an affordable housing advocate in Chapel Hill. He is on the board of directors at IFC and was previously a resident of IFC Men's Shelter. He's been involved with Meeting of the Minds since its inception and was a star of the affordable housing musical. He's got quite the singing voice, if y'all haven't heard that. Next, we have Corey Root. Corey Root serves as manager of the Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness. In her tenure, the partnership started 4 direct service programs and is working with community stakeholders to fill the homeless system's gaps. Previously, Corey worked with a team to coordinate homeless funding and services for 79 rural counties in our state. Before working in homelessness and housing, she was an administrator for Doctors Without Borders in Africa and television producer. Wow, that is quite a background. Next, we have Miss Delores Bailey. Delores Bailey joined Empowerment Incorporated in the summer of 2002 as a community organizer and began the Career Explorers program. In 2004, Ms. Bailey was promoted to co-director and in the following year became executive director. Since joining Empowerment, Ms. Bailey has been an outspoken advocate for residents of Chapel Hill. As executive director, one of her many major accomplishments includes coordinating with local community organizations to acquire a neighborhood conservation district in Chapel Hill. And last but not least, we have Ms. Jackie Thompson. Jackie Thompson is the Human Services Coordinator for the town of Chapel Hill. She has been employed with the town for over 30 years. She has served on various boards and committees in the Chapel Hill, Carborough area. Jackie lives in Carborough with her husband, and they have 3 children and 1 grandchild. And, you know, everyone can give a little hand clap to welcome our panelists. Thank you all so much for being here. Oh, y'all so sweet. Thank you. I turned, you know, big 2-4 today. Kobe year, rest in peace, Black Mamba. So my role in today's conversation is to moderate and make sure that we stay on time so that everyone can answer the questions, has an opportunity to speak, and as well as us saving some time at the end for questions from our wonderful audience. So I'm going to be using my phone to time people. I'll let you know, panelists, with a little hand wave when you have about 15 seconds left to speak. So, you know, when you see that, kind of just try to wrap up your last thought. And without further ado, I'm gonna dive right into our conversation for today around affordable housing. And I just want everyone in this conversation, our panelists, as well as our audience, to remember that housing at its core is about people and people's lives. We're gonna talk a lot about policy today, but we also want to keep our values and conversation centered on the people in our community. And so my first question is for everyone on the panel, and you'll have 1.5 minute each to respond. But the question is, why is affordable housing for folks at 30% AMI and below important and meaningful to you? And Ms. Bailey looks like she wants to kick us off, so I'll hand it to her first.
Thank you, Ty. I will read my message so that I can stay within the 1.5 minutes. Don't start my clock yet. Here I go. Empowerment Incorporated has been an affordable rental property landlord for more than 15 years. We've watched the demand for individuals and families living at 30% growing at or below, growing during that time. In 2017, the Orange County Comprehensive Plan identified a 1,200 housing unit gap for Orange County, and the most vulnerable populations were those below 30% AMI. They identified that those needed the housing the most. The average amount of units that we are producing, I will say approximately, is maybe 50 units per year. And at that rate, it would take us 24 years to close the gap. Empowerment sees this firsthand. We talk with people that don't make a living wage, $14 in Orange County, or who are living on disability or just don't have an income. It is meaningful to empowerment because, like CEF, we develop relationships with those people. We know and understand that not being able to afford safe, decent housing feels like punishment, and it shouldn't be. It is important to empowerment creates rental housing for those living at 30% and below, and that we have inventory that they can afford. It is also why we're starting to attack the gap by building the Peach Apartments on Johnson Street. I'm done.
Well, that was under time. Thank you, Ms. Bailey. I want to popcorn it over. Ms. Jackie Thompson is next on my screen. So Ms. Thompson?
Thank you. Affordable housing serves some of our most vulnerable individuals and families. When individuals earning 30% AMI or below don't have to worry about housing, they can focus on other opportunities and needs, such as their children, their physical and mental health, employment, education. And for some folks, affordable housing may not necessarily mean owning a home. It may mean renting. Affordable housing is very important to our families earning 30% or below the area AMI.
Next we have Ms. Donna Carrington.
So when I thought about this question, I thought about the fact that a majority of the people in this 30% and below AMI are our most vulnerable people, are older people, are disabled people. And so thinking about housing being a human right of a place where all of the things that they need to be taken care of are being done because they're housed. Imagine what it's like to have a home to come to put your medication in, to be able to do your education in, to be able to decide what you want to do with the rest of your life. And, you know, that's what I'm always thinking about with that 30% and below, is these are the people that we should be helping the most and should be the most stable. And with our economy and the way that it is, are the least stable. And so that was my answer.
Thank you, thank you. And then next, Mr. Ronald Carnes. Caught you off guard.
There you go. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This problem about 30, or this indication of the 30% AMI, it's an indicator of a problem that's been going on for 100 years at least. A problem is systemic. There's been an assault on poor people who lose their homes, end up homeless, nowhere to go. And the problem is known by the government. This is nothing new. And I think our community, poor people, minorities, we have to figure out a way to develop a source of power where we can get the people who we need that will be on our side to help make policies that will help us get these homes, affordable homes, built where we can have a place to live and sustain ourselves and raise our families and participate in this society and our government.
Thank you.
Oh, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Carnes. And Ms. Corey?
Yeah, I really agree and want to underline and support what Dolores and Jackie and Donna and Ron have all said. I really agree with all of that. You know, as someone who lives and works in Orange County, I want to live in a community, a rich and diverse community. And that includes people, you know, at 30% and under AMI. I don't think any of us want to live in a just homogenous place, you know, without people with a lot of different backgrounds and without, you know, that diverse richness. So that's, from a personal standpoint, why it's so important to me. And from a professional standpoint, we cannot end homelessness if we don't have that type of and so that is, you know, to my professional role, you know, it's just an absolute key. We need three things systemically and, you know, for each individual household to end someone's experience of homelessness. We need services that are appropriate for that person. That could mean a lot of services or could mean no services, depending on what that household needs. We need income, and that can mean a job or it can mean SSDI disability benefits, and we need affordable housing. So, you know, we need to have all three of those components in place in our community in order to end homelessness. And so it's just absolutely vital.
Thank you for those very important. Sorry, I'm just messing with the timer here. Thank you for that. Our next question is specifically for Mr. Ronald Carnes and Miss Donna Carrington. You'll have 3 minutes each to speak. And the question is, what is your personal lived experience around 30% AMI affordable housing?
For me, the 30% was never an issue. I've always been traveling, a loner, and I was one of the type of people that would find what I needed to get what I wanted. Being single, it's a lot different than somebody that has a family and kids who have to raise them, put them through school, protect them, and you're constantly being assaulted by a system that either doesn't want you there or could care less about you. I've witnessed a lot of this heartache, and there's other names I could get for it. I'm just of the group where I believe that our major need is to have a powerful source that can pick the politicians that we have in office and make sure that we have politicians that care about us and want to do things for us and do the right things. And Ty, I'm proud of you. You're a perfect example of what I've been talking about. The people helped get you in office, and you deserved it. I'm glad you're there. I'm through.
Oh, don't make me cry on camera, Mr. Carnes. It's not.
So I started out before my CEF work as a family in shelter that was making that 30% and below AMI because of having disabled children, and have had the experience of trying to struggle to find housing, to find resources with that income. And there was a very lucky part of that, which is having come out of shelter and being surrounded by a support circle to help find that. But the ability to find housing, when I was trying to find housing at that income and realized that income was at that time a little over $700 to try to house me and 2 children. And I remember we went through 8 different places trying to find a place that would be able to accept us with that income and some rapid rehousing support. It is not an easy place. Realized that the place we were was because of trauma that had happened to my family, and was a place that we had to learn to build from. I also ended up with a disability income for myself. However, that still didn't end up being enough and had to go to work. And so went through that process of that. And I understand the struggle. I understand what it's like to try to fit everything in those small level of income. The constant recertifications for things, the trying to make sure your utilities and your rent can fit within certain amounts to make sure that you're paying everything. It is something that I have never forgotten. Even as an ED, probably the way that I live is the same way I lived under that income, because those things don't change. They make an impression on you that doesn't change. And it's interesting to live in this area where there is a lot of affluence. And then if you really look, there isn't a lot of affluence in some places. And watching those people try to struggle and try to make it in an area where they're seeing lots of money and lots of resources around them doesn't necessarily make our area always the most inviting place. I think the first place that I see that show up is in our school system and how our kids are being treated because they may not have the same level of resources. COVID has really shown that. Having a school system that had to make sure that our children had computers, because that wasn't thought through before, that they actually didn't have those resources. But now, in order to do what the school system wanted people to do, they had to provide the resources for people. So I'm always thinking about the 30% and below, because it doesn't seem like this area has really made that a priority. And I'm always glad that people like Yvette have always really thought about that is where we need to be landing. So thank you.
Of course, and thank you. for that amazing answer. Next, this question is specifically for Ms. Bailey and Ms. Thompson. You'll also have 3 minutes each to answer. And the question is, how have you seen the lack of 30% AMI affordable housing impact folks in our community and those that you serve? Ms. Bailey, I think you're on mute if you're talking right now.
I am talking. Sorry about that. Even though empowerment rentals are lower than even HUD suggests that our rentals be, our monthly rentals, it's still not enough. Our inventory is limited. We only have 58 units right now, and it's often full. Even though there's some vacancies now, so this is hot off the presses, we've got about 3 vacancies. Corey, Jackie, please call us. It's still not enough. I've seen families live in hotels for months at a time because they couldn't find affordable housing. I've seen families pay more than 50%, and 30% is the limit of their income to live in an apartment they can't afford to maintain. So they may be able to live there for 2 or 3 months, and then they have to move. I've seen people move living in their cars. I've seen them leave the county. And when they're paying to live somewhere else, they're still paying the same amount of money, but they got to drive back to Chapel Hill or to wherever to their jobs. So they're still spending that kind of money. They just cannot spend it close by where they live and where they work. I have seen frustration. I have seen desperation. It's not fair and it's not right. But again, I'll say, somehow people think living at 30% and below that they're being punished because they can't find affordable housing. That should not be. There just needs to be more inventory.
I've seen families have to leave the area because there's not enough affordable housing. I've seen families and individuals move in with other family members, relatives, friends, in order to gain financial stability. I've seen families lose their job because they have nowhere to stay. I've seen families that have to separate. They have to move into the shelter. The women have to go one place, the children another place, the men another place. So when we think about families who are 30% area AMI, affordable housing is very, very important to them. Sometimes it's so important that it keeps the family together. They have to maintain or have to stay together. So finding housing for our families is very important. Housing that they can pay for, housing that where they don't have to worry about, if I don't pay my rent, I'm not going to have a place to stay. I just think in order to keep families together, we need to have some affordable housing.
Thank you. Our next question is for Ms. Corey and Ms. Donna. And again, you'll have 3 minutes each. Currently, there are 0 units of affordable housing available for folks who make 30% AMI and below. How are immediate needs being addressed? And what coordination is happening between the county and towns to address 30% AMI and below?
So the first part of the question, Ty, was, can you remind me again?
Yeah, so the first part of the question is, how are immediate needs being addressed? And then I can say the second one after or now, whichever you prefer.
And then the coordination piece.
Yeah, coordination.
Donna, is it okay if I start, or would you prefer to start?
No, you go.
After you. Great. Yeah, so I guess how needs are being addressed is the coordination, really. So it really is a lot together. So, when people are in housing crisis, we ask that folks contact or let us know if we can make a call out to or from the housing helpline. That's what's meant to be one-stop shopping for anyone in housing crisis, whether they're in housing and worried about maintaining that housing, or they've are starting to experience homelessness, or really right on the verge there, or they've been experiencing homelessness for some amount of time. Any piece or part of that, we're really asking folks to contact the housing helpline. And when folks call or email into the helpline, and I'll put in the chat the kind of phone number and the email and the hours and all that good stuff, there's an assessment that the staff do to try to determine and to get folks to the resources that they need that are appropriate for their situation. So there are a lot of resources currently available through the Emergency Housing Assistance Program, which is administered by Orange County Housing Department, is funded. I've got a lot of dinner time activity happening here. I don't thank you. Thank you though. Okay, thank you. So that Emergency Housing Assistance Program pushed out about $4 million in the last year for folks that had, really high needs due to COVID, and that were behind on rent or utilities. Also, for people experiencing homelessness, it can pay for security deposits to get into new units. So the Emergency Housing Assistance Program, and that has funding from the Town of Chapel Hill, Town of Carver, Town of Hillsborough, and Orange County, administered at Orange County, has been, I think, just a really incredible resource. The coordination piece also comes into play when someone is at risk of homelessness or starting to experience homelessness through the Home Committee, which is a group of service providers that meet now 2 times per month. And really work on individual cases, and work sort of household by household to identify a housing plan and to really not let anyone fall through the cracks. Folks have to give their consent to go on this list, and it's not for everyone, and that's okay. But we coordinate a lot of the permanent housing referrals through that program. And that really takes a lot of service providers coming together, doing a lot of hands-on work, and really making sure that the housing plan is advancing. Also, if we've tried things for a number of months and things aren't working, we're saying, what else can we, what else could potentially work in this situation? So I think the coordination in Orange County is, I've never seen better coordination. It's really amazing. I've worked in a lot of other communities, when I worked in the 79 counties, saw a lot of different systems, and there's some systems that really spend their entire time fighting with one another, which is obviously a waste of time and energy. And in other communities, they're really sort of begging people to come to these meetings, like the Home Committee, in their community. But in Orange County, I think there's a real understanding that collaboration has a huge role to play. Okay, I'm at my time. I can go on and on about this. And it's really hard, I think, for a lot of service providers who are doing this direct service to make that time. But huge thanks to all of the towns, CEF, IFC, all of the great service providers for making time for staff to do that really important coordination work.
So yeah, CEF is a part of that coordination work. I think Corey is right. Because we have an office in Orange County and Durham County, I do get to see some of that very difference in how coordination has gone. I do see that Orange County is at least having conversation and trying to address some problems where they can, and try to make their systems better and more responsive to the people around them. I think that's important. I don't think that's automatically going to fix everything, because that takes time and coordination. and learning the scope of this. I think one thing that has happened is COVID is really showing what we probably as service providers knew the whole time, that we weren't really serving the people we needed to serve as a community as well as we could. However, I think some of the worry for us also is there are monies coming down in COVID, but what happens when COVID is over? These things are still going to be there. And so that's where having providers be able to meet together and really do this work is going to keep those constant conversations coming. Coordinated entry is a great place for people to call and start to have those conversations about their needs. But it is hard to look in the community and find housing, and especially for 30% and below, because there just isn't options. There are, I know that there's been a process of housing vouchers coming out, and some other things to try to help, but it's still not addressing all of the need. And I think sometimes we don't always understand that not only is there this Orange County need, but there's this corridor need. So I talk a lot about the fact that people could end up being anywhere from Wake County to Durham County to Orange County at any particular night because of the way that they have to be transient about how they're able to be homeless. And we haven't figured out how to account for those people in that corridor, because you could land in the wrong corridor and they say to you, well, you actually have to be a resident of us for X amount of time and you can't get any services. And so that's some of what we're also seeing is where people are landing. But I also see a lot of people flocking to Orange County because they see the affluence of our county and expect that there's going to be the resources there. And that has been really hard for people because they see it and then they get here and it's not here and they're stuck.
Ty, can I just add one thing? The first part of that question said currently there are no 0 units of affordable housing for folks who make 30% AMI. I just want to say and give kudos to the town of Chapel Hill. We do have some housing, public housing and transitional housing that serves our families earning 30% or below of the area AMI. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Were you about to say something, Ms. Bailey? No, okay, you just unmuted. All right, our next question is for Mr. Ronald Carnes and Ms. Jackie Thompson. Again, you'll have 3 minutes each. When thinking about those most affected by housing insecurity, how would you like to see the town and county get input on affordable housing from communities at 30% AMI and below?
Let me start off by saying, I just recently acquired an apartment of my own in Carborough. And I give thanks to the organizations who are sensitive to the things that are going on, and listening to Corey and Donna, I realize how sensitive they are to what's actually going on the street. And my hat's off to you. You guys do a heck of a job. I've been dealing with this for about 4 years. I know the community and the people who have benefited from this and the people who have not received the help that they need. And all I can tell you is keep trying for those, and I hope there are people who are listening and seeking encouragement to try to get through this system that we're dealing with. Keep trying to get what you need. There are people that are out here to help And I'm listening to some of them now, and I've always been impressed with you ladies. And thank you.
So community outreach is very important to me. I would like for the town to continue to engage and invite our communities, 30% AMI or below, to town meetings. I would like for us to continue to hold focus groups. I'm also a big advocate of, we may have to go where people are. So we may have to carry our meeting into the neighborhoods to find out what it is that people 30% AMI need, what it is that they want. We may have to start those conversations and just invite them not only to town meetings, but to any other type of meetings that are going on. We have to invite them, and we have to value their input and make them feel like they are a part of our community.
So the next question goes to Ms. Bailey, and you'll have 3 minutes. So reflecting on the recent 1200 MLK situation, we had 72 families facing displacement from their homes and community. What lessons did you/we learn from that? And how can we be proactive to ensure that the most vulnerable people in our community never experience this again?
Never is an interesting word, but let me start with the fact that in that situation, what I learned about and hear about all the time is stereotypes. We are so convinced of the people who live in certain places and certain communities. To me, a community is where you live, where your home is, where you care about people and where people care about you. And that community could be the Oaks, it could be Northside, it could be Tar Heel Mobile Home Park. And I think that's something we don't remember. If I could get people to understand that mobile home parks are communities, just like any other community, I think we'd look at mobile home parks differently. We call it 1200 MLK. It's a mobile home park. It's a community. I've been working with those families for over 2 years, and I know the fear that they lived in for at least 12 months, wondering whether their units were going to be taken away from them, wondering whether they were going to have to find a home somewhere else, wondering if they were going to have to move their home, that they've spent thousands and thousands of dollars into. And it seemed like during all of this emergency time, nobody was coming to aid fast enough. No community, mobile home park, the Oaks, the Cedars, no community should live under that kind of stress and under that kind of worrying. So I know that there's been a petition submitted to the town council, Ty, and you may be able to speak to this, that's calling for us to step up and do more, and let's do this and let's do that. While these communities are still living in fear. Is Lakeview going to be all right? Is Hilltop going to be all right? Which mobile home park or which community is next? Because we could also talk about the gentrification of some of these neighborhoods, but we haven't. As residents of Orange County, we must proactively require the town and the county to get to work on that petition. We must not be able to sit back and let things and time go by. I imagine everybody's trying to work hard on this, but we've got to work harder. It is our responsibility to pay attention to what happened to that petition and to see that it gets going. It's our responsibility to speak up and hold town council responsible for incidents like 1200 MLK. We can do it, but we can't stop talking. We've got to be in the face. We've got to take care and care enough to listen to what's going on in town council. And that's on us. You say never, never is a hard word, but there are things we can do and we must do. And if it's nothing else than staying on the town council website and staying on Orange County's website and staying on Carborough's and seeing what's going on in affordable housing and seeing what's happening to mobile home parks, that's on us. That's what we have to do so that we don't go through that again.
Amen. So this is the last question that I have for you, panelists, and it is for everyone. You each have 3 minutes to answer. And the question is, what do you envision for affordable housing in the next 5 years? And what strategies can we take to get us there? What actions can we, the community, take to support and elevate affordable housing? Oh, Ms. Bailey wants to start. You can.
Since I'm unmuted, I'll start. I think one of the problems is affordable for who? I think that's a question that we've got to answer. There are a lot of new rental projects that are coming out to the council recently. I've listened to them. And one in particular is something that is one that everybody should understand and should immediately recognize. That's University Place. For those of us that have been in Chapel Hill for forever, you know the spot, you know how much, and they got 43 acres over there that they're about to change something to. And they have promised to put approximately, forgive me, town folk, if I've got this number wrong, at least 300 apartments over there. 15% of that is what they're saying they will make affordable. And that's fine. That means 45 units. But affordable to who? 80% is what they're saying, AMI. 80% will not reach the population we are talking about. It can't. But we don't have rent control, so we cannot push developers to put more in there than that, but we can ask. We can petition, we can say constantly, and not just us, not just the panelists that are on this call right now, every one of you all that are listening, continue to ask, well, can we get a little bit lower? Can we go a little bit more? Ask them. We're never going to get to 30% and to fill that 1,200 unit gap by ourselves. We have to work with for-profit developers to get and reach that population. The other thing I think we have to do to answer that last question, what strategies do we have? If you are not on a town council, if you are not on an advisory board, if you are not doing something with your voice, then you're in the wrong. Sign up for something, run for something, use your voice and be at a meeting. If you don't want to be on an advisory board, go to advisory board meetings and use your voice. It's your right. And we've got to speak up for those that can't, don't have access to a virtual call, don't have access to even a phone. That's our responsibility and that's on our shoulders. Thank you. And thank you for this.
Use your voice. I'm gonna start using that, Ms. Bailey. Well, Mr. Carnes, you want to go next?
I hope this isn't taken negatively, but I would really like to see the method that's used to pick these developers expanded. It seems like there's a select group of people that have access to the decisions that are made on who's going to develop these properties. I just, in my heart, believe that there are some developers out there who need an opportunity to show what they can do. And they haven't been tapped on. I may be wrong, but I think where there's competition, it should open up the opportunity to develop more affordable housing with the different methods of construction. I'm done.
Ms. Donna, you want to jump in?
Sure. To piggyback a little bit on what Dolores said and Jackie said, I think we have to make sure that we're in conversation with the people that this is affecting, and we're having those conversations where they are. I think one of the things that I've recently in this last year found out about being a person of lived experience is we are not usually in those places of where these conversations are. It just happened that I was on another advisory committee when I was at the town council meeting about the 1,200 MLK Place stuff. And so that was very interesting. And that was a really long town council meeting, by the way. And I sat through the whole thing because I was so fascinated with the fact that I hadn't been hearing about this and everything I saw that I heard go down. And I realized that, you know, the one thing that bothered me the most was not having the people that it's affected in that last meeting to have those conversations. And so we have to think about really good ways to get that input. Because I think getting that input, yes, I do think that having people that are willing to do more of the advocacy and stuff to get on the advisory councils, yes. But also the second part of it is that we have to go where people are. We have to really be thinking about who this is actually affecting. And I am a person that to me, it's not just about housing stock. It's about, we have to change our view about who's important, because housing stock, if we think about what's here, we have lots of apartments, lots of buildings that every day I look at and go, who in the heck is living there? But we haven't changed the view of who is actually important in our community and who the needs are for. And until we do that, the likelihood of things changing is going to be so much harder. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackie or Ms. Corey, whoever wants to hop in first.
I agree with what has been said, and I envision affordable housing being stable and affordable options, whether it's rent or mortgage, but it being within the family or individual's budget, that they actually be able to live within their budget and not have to worry about housing. And I truly agree that we have to meet people where they are. We have to go out into the community. We have to be a voice for them. We just have to be their voice sometimes. We have to invite them to serve on advisory boards, committees, and just get them more involved and rally behind them.
Yeah, I really agree. I think we've got a lot of low-hanging fruit as far as centering people with lived experience of housing instability in the work, and I'm really excited that my board is really taking that as a priority and looking at that. I wanted to clarify from earlier too, that Jackie was saying the town of Chapel Hill public housing has units at 30% AMI, and the housing choice vouchers also, which is another housing subsidy, make units affordable for folks at 30% AMI as well. Emily, I put that in the chat, but I think that's a really important point. And as far as what we can do to continue to elevate affordable housing, I think some of that is building on successes that we've already seen, including, housing choice vouchers now being available, through the home committee. That has made a huge, that's been a huge way to move the needle on getting folks into housing, and there's a lot more funding coming from the American Rescue Plan for housing choice vouchers, or something that's going to look like housing choice vouchers. Is not exactly all clear yet, so that's really exciting. And also, on the work of the eviction prevention work that's happened. So over 1,200 evictions have been prevented in the last year. I mean, that is amazing. And we need, continued funding for that work. I think also in thinking about new avenues, we know what it takes to end homelessness. It's not a secret. We know that filling our gaps and our homeless systems gaps will get us a long way towards that work. And I think, Orange County is sort of uniquely poised to be able to do that. And for me, that's also a really important component of the work.
Gotcha. Thank you. So now I'm going to move on to questions from the audience. And I'm going to pick out some of the questions from our Q&A list here. I see Ms. Bailey has already answered one. So the first one I'm going to ask, and these are kind of a free-for-all, so whoever wants to answer can answer. Not everyone has to. But when the moratorium on evictions ends, will there be enough housing? Will this affect mostly those of low income or those whose debt has built and they simply cannot pay it down? Is there a plan in place to work with this?
So just to jump in on the emergency housing assistance piece, we haven't been waiting in Orange County, for the eviction to pay back rent. And so we're not expecting to see this, tsunami of evictions that other communities have been sort of bracing for. And, the moratorium has lapsed, I think twice, since it was initially put into place. And we didn't see, this huge deluge of evictions because we've been paying rent, the last year, $4 million worth, pushed out. And that was a really conscious decision to try to avoid, a giant, problem once the moratorium expires. So I think we're looking again to sort of continue that work and through the housing helpline and all the referral partner agencies to try to make sure that work continues.
And I would say that Orange County has done a fantastic job, but there are a lot of people that are not in that pipeline. And the answer is yes. You're going to see a lot of homeless folk. That number is going to increase. They may not be out on the streets. They're going to be on somebody's couch because these landlords are desperate for their money. And so for the people who could not qualify, let's take a person who is not documented and doesn't qualify for this stimulus, for the money that's been coming out, the COVID money. Those families are going to experience some hardships. They've not been able to access these dollars. That's people that are homeowners and renters. So yes, there is going to be a problem. Are we handling it? How are we handling it? For agencies like Empowerment and Community Trust and whichever other nonprofits have housing counseling or HUD certified housing counseling agencies, they are available and have been used to help people figure out what to do with the little bit of money they have or the money they don't have. And so there is that in place.
Thank you, anyone. Oh, and I think in the chat, Ms. Amila Sutton just wanted to clarify that people who are undocumented qualify for the emergency housing assistance. Okay,
just an example. There are other folk inside mobile home parks that don't qualify, and it might not be the documentation, but not all of them, not everybody qualifies for the money that's available.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me say it that way.
All right, if no one else wants to answer, I can move on to the next question, which is what role is UNC being asked to play in providing workforce housing, especially for their lowest paid employees? I see Mr. Carnes shaking his head.
This is above my pay grade. I know nothing about UNC's input.
I mean, from my experience, UNC's at a lot of tables. They're, interested in this conversation, and, they have representatives on the Affordable Housing Coalition and some of the other groups. But to my knowledge, they're not providing workforce housing. Please correct me, others, if I've got that wrong.
Thank you. What was that, Ms. Bailey?
I said next.
I guess that's your answer then. I see a question in the Q&A. Is the town proactively encouraging conversation with owners / developers of the mobile home parks? Ms. Bailey?
I am not the town.
Ms. Jackie Thompson?
We will defer that question to Loryn Clark, who's on the call.
Oh.
Hi. Hello. So we are not necessarily actively talking to the current owners, but we have done some outreach to the residents of the other mobile home parks in the community, in addition to Tar Heel that we were just working with, but to other neighborhoods over the past couple of years, trying to get a sense of what people's housing preferences are and what just finding out more information about their current situation. So we've not actively engaged the property owners at this time, but that could be a next step that comes out of the conversation that the council is trying to, and the elected officials in the county are trying to initiate.
And Loryn, while you're on, we have a question about how much money, and I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but how much money is in the Affordable Housing Fund currently?
Well, we've got, the town has multiple affordable housing sources, so it's hard to distinguish, but just in general, we have an annual allocation that the council provides of about $695,000. That's for affordable housing development projects. Then we also have our annual community development block grant that we receive each year. That's about in the $450,000 range. We also, thank you to the Chapel Hill voters, we have a $10 million affordable housing bond. $5 million of that has been appropriated. We expect to appropriate the balance of the remaining $5 million next year. And we also have some funds that the town receives called our Affordable Housing Fund, that are funds that we receive from developers for payments in lieu of providing affordable housing. And that amount fluctuates. There's not a specific allocation to that. It just depends on how much money happens to come in at a particular time from a developer.
Gotcha. Thank you. And then we have a question about developer or socially responsible developers and financial institutions. Are they invited to the table? Are they involved with the coordination, the work?
I think some of that happens as a result of the work of the Affordable Housing Coalition. I think that some of also the development that's happening, the town has initiated development on town-owned land. So we have several developers that have come forward and have offered and are working with us to develop affordable housing. So they do exist. We don't necessarily, with all the development that happens in town, the town doesn't invite developers. Developers bring the proposals to the town. And in the case of the projects that I mentioned on town-owned property, we actually issued a request for proposals looking for a development partner that has the same values and has the same interest in developing affordable housing. So that's kind of a unique approach that we've taken to create new units in the community. And we expect over the next few years for those developments to come online. So that's a different approach that we're trying to attract different developers who are interested in creating affordable housing, specifically in partnership with the town.
Thank you. And I guess for any of the other panelists, if you work with any, the question was, socially responsible financial institutions or developers to create affordable housing. All right, let me answer that. There's a question about Easttown, but those. I'm not. Oh, someone asked, can we define what 30% of the AMI is in dollars and cents? Oh, someone already did it. Never mind. Well, I don't really see any other questions. I guess without questions, we can end early. I'll give y'all back some time of your day. Unless I'm. Oh, another one. Are there things the town can do to lower the costs associated with building affordable housing in town, such as permits, the review process, and the cost of construction?
So we can't impact do anything about the cost of construction, but there certainly are things that we can do to lower the cost that we are doing. One is, like I mentioned earlier, we are providing land to develop affordable housing, so that at no cost. So that takes the cost of the land costs, which are extremely high in this community, out of the picture for the cost for development. We also do waive permits and permit fees for affordable housing development projects. And we also have, with the affordable housing projects that come through the town for review, our staff often gives a little bit of extra attention to those projects to help not necessarily expedite them through the process, but to help guide them through our development process. So there are some things that we definitely do to support affordable housing development in the community.
Gotcha. Thank you. And oh, here's another question. And I'll start with Ms. Donna on this, but how can we take restorative action for folks who have been impacted by housing insecurity?
I think they need a voice, so they need places to be able to talk about what has happened for them and why. They need people to hear them. I sometimes think, why did I have to become an ED in order for somebody to hear me? Why couldn't somebody hear me when I was just a regular old person that wasn't this? They need to be honored, so they need to be invited to tables, to be able to speak, to be able to have their voices heard. And their voices need to be the most important things in the room. If we're doing all of those things, I do think that helps them feel more empowered and helps them feel like that they can be those places and have some input.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to hop in on that? I can repeat the question if need be. All right. Oh, we have a question from Anna Richards. What is being done to lessen the impact of the recent inequalities in the recent tax reevaluation, or reval, I think is? Oh, thanks for that, Ms. Bailey. Gotcha. Oh, what can the county do to elevate the voices of people with lived experiences and the towns?
I kind of think that's been answered, Ty, in that we got to go where people live. We can't sit behind the podiums all the time. And I think there are places where people do want to tell their story and where we can benefit from that. But like Jackie said earlier, we've got to go, and Donna, we got to go where people live. And during COVID times, that's challenging. It is challenging for everybody. But we have 72 people on this phone call. And so if we use our voices and share our voices with other people that we know, we're ready to listen. Someone else in the chat said your commissioners can listen. Your town council people can listen. Your Carver council people can listen. They are there to be listened, to listen. So I would suggest that.
Oh, going back to the question. Oh, wow, these things keep popping around. Sorry about that, y'all. Going back to the question, can we invite impacted people to the table for their important stories and input and actually pay them for their consultation? We pay other consultants. Paying people for their time is an indicator that we value their voices.
I think that's a really good point. I know it's something that our town council has talked about. We haven't initiated anything like that, but it is definitely something that has been put on the table for consideration.
Answer that one. Give it another sec. They just keep trickling in.
Just back to the compensation. Yeah, I really agree. And I think that can take a lot of different forms, right? So at the Partnership to End Homelessness, we're talking about compensating folks that are serving on boards and committees. but also if we're doing a survey or something of that nature, and we're asking folks, you know, to share their expertise in a survey or something like that, there needs to be compensation for that as well. You know, that we're really showing that this has incredible value, and backing that up with actual, you know, monetary remuneration. I don't know if I said that word right. I think that's a different word. Remuneration. Yeah. So, and, you know, I think also, just to echo what Dolores is saying, we need to go where people are absolutely, but also think about, you know, well, we have our committees and our, you know, things, but I think things like Meeting of the Minds, which is a peer-led space, you know, that the committees need to come to the Meeting of the Minds and come to other spaces, not just expect folks to come to all of our committees, but it's a both and I love the use your voice. Absolutely. Yes.
And I also know that the Orange County Food Council created a Black Farmers Trust and paid them as consultants for their lived experience and input. So that's another example of in our county of paying impacted folk for their time and lived experience. So speaking of that, another question we got was, what do you see as the role of race in affordable housing action?
Okay, so I don't think there's any reason to cover the fact that our renters in Orange County are experiencing some serious issues. Of course, I cannot remember the numbers off the top of my head, the number of white families or renters that are experiencing having to live beyond and living at cost burden, which means they're spending more than 30% of their income. But the number almost triples in the African-American community. I can only speak for that as far as my numbers go. So what difference does race play in it? We are not making the income that many of our counterparts are. We're being laid off first. We're not getting accepted for job positions. There are lots of places, and one small thing that sometimes feels small but is big, our credit scores keep us from several things. And so I don't want to blanket it, but you can see the disparity. And again, unfortunately, I'm not ready with my numbers. I have them on another slide somewhere, but there is a huge disparity for those Black and brown families that are making less, that are laid off first, that are working 2 part-time jobs, I think somebody mentioned, just to make ends meet. And it affects your housing and it affects your stability.
Yeah, just to add on, really agree with all of that. You know, I think we need to name race as an incredible factor in affordable housing and an incredible factor to how we've gotten to where we are today. There was white supremacist, racist policy written into federal regulations on housing. Like, that is incredible. And we don't often talk about it, and we need to. And we also need to talk about the current housing discrimination that happens day in and day out. You know, we incorporate fair housing as a huge component to our work. We do tons of referrals to the Orange County Human Rights and Relations Commission. They do a great job there. And, you know, it's just something we have to just be constantly fighting, constantly naming. It's a really important question. Really appreciate the question, and something that just needs to be in the forefront of our minds. We need to be applying a racial equity lens to all decisions for all of the work around affordable housing in order to make any headway in this space.
I totally agree with Corey, and I'm just going to add that the comment about the racial equity lens and making sure that when we're looking at development, when we're looking at projects, and we're looking at anything even beyond housing as a town, as an organization, that we need to look at that through that racial equity lens and talk about who is most impacted, who is negatively impacted, who is left out of the conversation, who's left out of the decision-making process, and really be deliberate about that action with every decision that we make.
Gotcha. Well, with that, I think I'm getting the signal to call it a wrap. Thank you. I want to say thank you so much first to our amazing panelists. Thank you for your time today and offering both your lived experience as well as your expertise on this subject. What's going on?
And hold up just a second, Ty. We here at Meeting of the Minds are going to sing a quick happy birthday to you. Thank you so much for doing it. Ms.
Thank
B.
you so much.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Oh, y'all gonna make me zero. Thank you, everyone. And for all of our wonderful attendees, thank you as well. Thank you for that wonderful birthday song. Y'all all know you're the reason, I'm here and I do what I do. Stay up to midnight on these council meetings. You can tag me out anytime you want. Don't get me. But yes, thank you everyone for spending your Monday evening, afternoon, whatever it is with us. Hope you can enjoy the wonderful weather and maybe put on a pollen filter. But yes, thank you everyone. And with that, I think we can bid everyone farewell, unless I missed anything. Val, let me know if I should have said anything else, but I think that was everything.
Thank all of you for everything you do.
See everyone at the next Meeting of the Minds.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, panelists, so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. I'm calling you right now.
Call you, Loris.